So embedded payments is effectively when a software provider or a merchant is offering both a software and embedded finance products in a kind of single solution. We estimate that between 44 and 66% of small and medium-sized merchants effectively bought payments on their software solution. In Europe, software platforms are truly becoming the kind of key distribution channel for like SME payments. Banks are just like very slow to innovate, but I think they're also very much aware of that. As a bank, we actually have this unique go-to-market channel because we already own the customer relationship. Right? It's all about distribution actually. Someone who actually is successful in embedding payments in product or fintech products will effectively win in the future because you're providing, again, an entire one-stop shop solution.
Charlotte, I'm so pleased to see you here. How's it begun?
It's great. Yeah, I'm doing really well. Conference very busy, lots of different topics, lots of people to meet, and it's always very successful.
I'm surprised you still have your voice.
Yeah.
Like I'm literally like struggling, to keep up. There's a lot of chat, a lot of talk. And I think, if anything, what we are hearing right now in this industry is quite a transformation. There's quite a lot. Have you picked up something interesting?
Yeah, lots of different topics. Obviously, everyone's mouth from AI, agentic commerce, but I still think embedded payments, embedded finance is still a massive topic, which I'm still discussing a lot with a lot of people, which is great because I think it's an important topic for software platforms, for merchants, for ecosystem enablers in general. So again, really interesting topic to keep on top of.
It's quite funny because, you say embedded payment, there's embedded finance, and these are buzzwords. Right?
It is, yeah.
And it wouldn't harm for me to actually ask you what exactly is it and why is it so much of a big deal?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think just starting from the basics again. So embedded payments is effectively when a software provider or a merchant is offering, both a software and embedded finance products in a kind of single solution, right? So it's one-stop shop for the merchants. So it's a single service, a single point of data, reconciliation, billing, whatnot. It's much more easier, for the merchant ultimately to enable. And then it's also more efficient because instead of training, your employees on two different products, you train them on one product. And so that's very broadly defined embedded payments and finance, the concept. The number of products is much broader, right? Because you have payments, you have lending, you have banking, you have payouts. It's a very broad topic. It's mainly an SMB opportunity, purely speaking. But again, it's also applicable to the enterprise space.
And are you think this effectively really being picked onto the same level across regions? Because when there is innovation, you tend to see sometimes that certain regions are very, in Europe we're fairly mature markets, right? The US sometimes, sort of come up, raise the innovation of their own, and then it catches the rest of the world, or vice versa. So where is really for you the key spots of where this is emerging and starts really gaining traction?
So when we look at maturity, where the US market is where it's most mature, right? So for example, when we look now at the landscape, we estimate that between 44 and 66% of small and medium-sized merchants effectively bought payments on their software solution. In Europe, we are slightly behind. We are slightly behind across point of sale, across e-com. But again, the landscape is changing rapidly. And so software platforms are truly becoming the kind of key distribution channel for SME payments. Now, again, if you look into continental Europe, banks still have a big presence. But again, it's upcoming and it's a massive opportunity across verticals, across horizontals. So that's really exciting.
When you mention banks, I've had quite a few conversations where we keep comparing banks, FinTechs, because with all of this innovation, there's a real questions around whether they're becoming obsolete, where the value stays within the value chain, right? Because it's quite disruptive. Have you got some thoughts?
Yeah, so I think in general, banks are just like very slow to innovate, but I think they're also very much aware of that.
Yeah.
And
It would be funny if they were not.
I think banks still have a very strong right to win, even within payments, even within embedded finance. I think it's just still time to react, right? Because if you look at Europe or UK, the market is not that mature yet. So you have a couple of verticals that are really taking FinTechs, web shop platforms like Shopify, Wix, WooCommerce. Those guys are really very mature. But you have a long list of other verticals and horizontals where it's not the case. And then keep in mind that, as a bank, you actually have this really good market channel because you already own the customer relationship, right? You're the one actually giving the mortgage. And so, for example, anything that's really secured loans, for example, isn't going to be displaced by FinTechs, or at least not exclusively. So you still have a large opportunity. It's just about, is the bank willing to invest and willing to accelerate the kind of FinTech growth?
Or to buy. A FinTech that has already got that sorted out.
Exactly.
And I completely agree with you because fundamentally, the power with the bank, it's also the trust, right? Because customer would tend to be more familiar and comfortable doing certain product through the banking channel. That legacy definitely is attached with the trust and the security associated with it, and like you're talking, loan, etc. So those are very heavily regulated sort of transactional, product. So it does make sense. And distribution, to your point, is probably something that is driving the industry forward, right? Because there's been a lot of time where the market was dominated from, say, players having sorted it all out. But what we're seeing is that the demand and how things are evolving is pushing the industry to go through a modular approach, and that's where distribution, right, becomes a challenge.
Yeah, it's all about distribution actually. So for example, if you take embedded lending, which is technically really falling into the bank's kind of core proposition, we have a lot of FinTechs now that are displacing banks with much more agile product packages, right? So all of unsecured lending is effectively getting displaced by FinTechs. So you have the likes of Ulend, of Liberis, and other banks that are making a massive push and actually winning on the basis of agility, better data, quicker subscription, you get the funding within one day, right? And for an SMB merchant, it's massive. It makes a massive difference.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, with all of that, what could we possibly expect else coming to the industry, right? I mean, this is a fairly still growing opportunity, the embedded finance. Is there anything else that is kind of really dominating the trends?
Honestly, I think so embedded payments as such, there's still a lot of headroom, right? As I just described, across verticals, horizontals. And there's again, this entire product set that is largely untouched yet. So we are seeing acceleration across some parts of the lending market, merchant cash advance, instant settlements, somewhat unsecured term loans. But there's a massive amount of other products that you can embed. Another thing as well that's super important is as you think about the topic of AI disruption that everyone is talking about, specifically for software platforms. Someone who actually is successful in embedding payments in broader core FinTech products will effectively win in the future because you're providing, again, an entire one-stop shop solution.
Yes.
And so that's incredibly important. Again, we are so much at the beginning of the opportunity. Keep in mind as well that usually a software platform will start to embed payments, but then there's also the operating model question, right? So again, just back to your comment about distribution. You first want to actually sell the product. You want to nail the first use case, that you go on to the next. But then it's also we realize how much money we can make. We want to actually own the merchants. We want to be way more flexible, right? In effectively owning the broader set of embedded finance products. So you start actually in-housing components. So you don't act as a software platform anymore. You actually start to act like a FinTech.
Yeah.
A great example of that is the likes of Shopify, right? They started 2013 with payments.
Okay.
They waited 4 years before launching lending.
Mm-hmm.
They then waited another 3 years to launch the next product, and they just became a pay factor.
Oh, really?
So again, it really comes down towards you need to learn how to sell. And then, how do we change completely our business model, right? Because then you need compliance, you need to onboard payments. It's different from literally selling something.
So interesting. I love how you've got all of this insight and you have enlightened me, because I know about embedded finance, but the fact that you guys have been doing quite a lot of research, right, recently on that. I think it's a conversation to be continued, because, as you said, it's just the beginning. So I hope you'll be hoping to welcome back and carry on the conversation as things progress and new sorts of innovation and new case come up to now.
Absolutely, and thanks a lot for having me.
Honestly, it's a pleasure.